So your father, Oscar Dishman Jr., was training horses before segregation laws were overturned during the Civil Rights Movement. What were some of the obstacles that your father faced in his years in the industry?
There were so many. He couldn't get a horse trainer's license because he was black. He couldn't buy horses in his own name. He had to buy them in Tommy Stevens' name, which used to be his boss when he was riding. And trust that Tommy would admit that they really were Daddy's horses, so when the laws did change, he could claim his own horses. When he was at a track, I won't name which one, he had 20 horses. They gave him 10 stalls. When he asked what is he supposed to do with the other 10 horses, they said, that's not my problem. That kind of stuff. When our horse was bumped in a race, our horse got disqualified, even though we were not the ones who did the bumping. After Daddy purchased horses in his name, more or less, he would always put them in Mama's name so he could use the passes for networking and stuff. Daddy had displayed all the stickers and badges and things that you need on the windshield that were supposed to be there. And he had asked Mama to come to see her horse run. Well, when she came, she was going to the track first to let Daddy know she was there and everything, and I guess wait for him to come up to the grandstand. And the guardsman wouldn't let her in. And she said, why? She said, I have all the stickers and the badges that I'm supposed to have, because there's some they wear and some on the windshield. And he said, you can't come in here. She said, well, I'm Oscar Dishman's wife. He said, no, you're not. She said, I am Oscar Dishman's wife. He said, no, you're not. I know Oscar Dishman, and he is not black. Thought, apparently you don't know him that well. She eventually got in, but she had to call Daddy to prove that she was his wife.
Marilyn, what drew him to his work, despite these challenges?
Now, this was something new I learned today, because I was a little foggy. I thought it was his great-grandfather that started, because he managed 200 acres of land, and they had horses and mules and everything there. But James Jackson told me that it was his father, my grandfather, which I knew worked with the horses, but he was a groom. And he traveled, I believe, with Walnut Hall Farm, because I know every winter he was in Florida, because he'd bring us back, and this is going to date me, a Bow dollar, which it's a silver dollar, but he always called them Bow dollars, and fresh fruits that we dearly loved, So James Russell said that Granddaddy told Daddy, said, why don't you go into training, and I'll be glad to be your groom. I will take care of all of your horses, which I thought was really nice, but he didn't want Daddy to be like him as a groom, because there are not a lot of places upward bound for that particular job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into it.
And so that's how he got into it. What do you think kept him in it once he started?
I don't think anybody in this world ever loved horses the way Daddy did. I was still living in Texas when my mom called me to tell me that Daddy had had a heart attack, and they wanted to do bypass surgery on him, but he refused because he was afraid of not waking up from the anesthesia. So they called me like I could change his mind. So I came here and tried to talk with him about having the bypass surgery, because he'd had heart trouble for years. But in Florida, whenever he had these attacks, they kept saying they weren't heart attacks and stuff. And he wasn't treated properly, And so I tried to tell him, I said, Daddy, don't worry about the anesthesia. If you go while you're under anesthesia, that's the best way to go, honey. And so he still wouldn't change his mind. So he did get the stents, I think, that time. Yeah, he got the stents. 35 days later, had another big one. Mama called me again. And this time, the doctor told him the first time, to take off some time, at least 2 or 3 months, to give his heart a chance to heal and everything. That didn't last but 1 month, I think. So after the second one, the doctor actually told him to retire. That didn't last too long either. He would start by telling Mama, especially on Sundays when it was more or less our slow day or day off, I'm going to look at the horses. And he'd be gone maybe 30, 40 minutes. Then a couple days later, I'm going to go check on the horses. And each time it was longer and longer. He was back into training. I'm pretty sure within a month. Okay, so when that third one came along, that's when he decided to have bypass surgery. That's also when the doctor told him he really needed to retire, because training is very stressful, especially if you're a minority in, the game. They're extra stressors, let's say. I just wanted to add something about Daddy, why he stayed in the racing game as long as he did. Not only did he love the horses, but Daddy loved people. He was a very gregarious man who enjoyed being around people and laughing and talking. Even with his business partners, they had fun, And he was so sociable that I remember after they retired, they spent more time socializing, because when Daddy was training, they didn't get to spend much time in Lexington because he had to go where the race meets were. And that was something else my mom didn't like, because she played her organ and a piano, and they were her respites from all the stuff. And so she couldn't play them while she was gone. Who's going to travel with the piano, a big piano back then, or an organ? So they did a lot more socializing. They socialized with our friends, too. They loved all my friends.
Did he have a favorite horse that stands out to you, or at least one that he shared with you all as his favorite?
I think I really can't narrow it down to one. It's two, though. Well, and I had to look up some dates because my memory is a little bit foggy. He liked Silver Series, and a lot of other people liked him, too. And that was one powerful horse. And he only raced for 3 years, but in that 3 years' time, he made $590,000, almost $600,000, which was a lot in 3 years' time. I remember one summer he made over $300,000 just in between June and August, And out of his 29 starts, his record was 11 wins, 5 seconds, and 5 thirds. That's a pretty good record. He died in March of '82. Then he had Golden Don, which we all love. He had the Don brothers, let's say. The other one was Don de Gaulle and Golden Don. Don de Gaulle didn't do quite as well as Golden Don, but this horse made $443,000 in his racing lifetime, and he only raced 1 year. And this horse ran third against Secretariat at the 1973 Canadian International, and I was the only one that missed it. My husband felt like we couldn't go because he wanted to pay our way. I said, nobody's paying their way. Daddy and the industry is paying for the whole family. I've never forgiven him for that. So I missed seeing him run against Secretariat. And that was outstanding. And both of the horses were like horses to watch. So we were very proud of that. And he was very proud of it as well.
You've shared your father's story with so many different people over the years in different ways. But if you had to choose one thing today that you would want people to remember about your father, what would it be?
I think even though he was an outstanding horseman, he single-handedly spearheaded desegregation of the schools in Scott County, even with all kinds of threats, not just his job, but his life. So in 1953, that's when he began, excuse me, my allergies, I guess, are acting up. He started with our boycotting the schools, and in New Zion, which is a community of about 200 at the time. All of the kids stayed out of school the first week, maybe even the first 2 weeks. But then a lot of them worked at Walnut Hall Farm and the different horse farms. They were threatened with their parents losing their jobs, including the women. They cleaned and stuff. So they were scared. And I understand, because even before they started threatening their lives, they started threatening their livelihoods. And in tobacco, it was either working with the horses or tobacco, and they didn't have much choice. But my cousin next door and her brother stayed out, and my brother and I stayed out. And then after about a month, they caved in as well. So Bernard and I were the only two that stayed out the entire semester. And by this time, the NAACP had gotten involved from Georgetown, and we got the lawyer from Louisville. Oh, he was this humongous man. I mean, I would have been scared of him, even if he just said hello, I'm serious. I think he was about 6'6" and not skinny, let's say. And he had this powerful voice, And so he took it up with the NAACP. And so they asked us to continue at the black school for the remainder of the school year, which it wasn't our black school, which was a Rosenwald school. We finished school in Georgetown. And then 1954, all the schools in Scott County were desegregated. And so I'm really proud of that, and I know he was proud of it, because this was before the United States had declared schools be desegregated.